let's take a look here at a topic that is of interest to economists. We've been talking about a slowdown for a long time, and it's because we saw it coming for a long time. January 21st, we saw inflation really take off, and we had supply chain problems and, labor shortages driving up prices and so forth. You got those pretty big shocks, and then you had a Federal Reserve starting to aggressively raise interest rates. All that spells recession.
Correct.
Well, there are a couple of reasons why that hasn't come to fruition yet. We still think 2024 is going to be weak growth. We don't see a recession. Here's how this happened. There are a few reasons why monetary policy first has not worked. First of all, it takes time. What I mean is this. When you raise interest rates like the Federal Reserve does, it takes 3 to 6 quarters for it to have full effect. So this chart on the left is kind of a conceptual diagram. Each one of those red arrows there is an interest rate hike, and this shaded area is inflation in the economy. Now, notice I say they're the same thing. They are. The Fed's trying to slow inflation, and they do that by slowing the economy too. So let's say that hike in March of 2022, which is unbelievably coming up 2 years ago now, has had plenty of time to work. It has gone all the way through, and it's had its full effect. Same thing in the hike of May 2022, June, July, September, November. That's certainly probably had its full effect. How about December of 22? Well, that's a little more than a year ago. That's 5 quarters. Well, sometimes it takes 6 quarters to have full effect. How about that hike in January? It hasn't had a chance to work, or the March, or the May, or the July. It takes time, 3 to 6 quarters. That's one of the reasons slowdown isn't here yet. And the other reason is this chart, which I showed you a minute ago about fiscal policy. This is Congress and the administration spending more and more money. They're stimulating the economy by spending money while the Federal Reserve is trying to do exactly the opposite. And that's why the Federal Reserve's interest rate increases haven't slowed the economy as much as we thought they would.
So let me interrupt you here real quick, Dan. In the fall, we were talking about flirting with going negative.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, it may happen at the end of, third to fourth quarter last year. And I believe the government spending was actually so much that it pushed us from negative into positive. Is that accurate?
Well, what really does it is the consumer. Consumer drives 70% of all economic activity. So consumers got this big injection of cash, basically, in 2020 and 2021 from all those fiscal policies you see here went into people's pockets, and they created excess savings above what people would normally have. And that's been fueling spending. And that's why you see that's how this translates. This is the fiscal spending, the budget outlays, goes into people's pockets, and they were spending and they kept spending. So yes, you're right. Fiscal policy ending up in the pockets of consumers kept driving the economy, and probably will keep driving. Except I'm going to show you another thing. Let me go and show you another reason why this slowdown hasn't gotten here. Here too, one is it takes time. This is the Fed, takes time. And the other one, at this time that the Fed is trying to slow the economy, the Congress and the administration are trying to speed it up.
Okay.
There are a couple of other reasons here. Now, during the period when interest rates were set to zero here around COVID, a lot of corporations issued debt at basically almost 0% interest rates. If you're a corporation that can at that point, why wouldn't you incur more debt really, really cheaply. In fact, interest payments by corporations, that blue line is now at a record low. And this is the Fed funds rate, the rate that the Federal Reserve controls, the interest rate. And so what the chart says is, corporations, the blue line, they're paying record low rates and they're saying, hey, Fed, go ahead, raise rates all you want. We locked in near zero. This interest rate hike is not affecting us yet.
Okay.
The same thing happened to consumers. This is the corporate side on the left. Over on the right, we have this blue line, this debt service ratio, which is basically the amount of mortgage and consumer debt you have to pay off every month compared to your income. And that dipped very low and is still just about at a record low outside of the COVID period. And that's because homeowners locked in mortgages at very low rates. So it's the same thing. They're saying, Fed, go ahead, raise the interest rates. I don't care. I'm locked into a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah, I'm
So
not
this,
moving, right? They're saying they're not moving. We can
right,
wait this out.
exactly. So here are two other reasons why that monetary policy, which typically is so powerful, has been stymied for now.
Makes
All right.
sense.
So that kind of, I'm hoping offers some explanation as to why the slowdown we were talking about for so long hasn't gotten here. Nonetheless, we still think 2014 is going to be slow. And here's why. And this is the last topic I'll talk about, which again is
Cool.
consumers. Consumers drive 70% of the economy. Consumers need money to spend. That's the chart on the left. This is disposable personal income. That's after taxes and after inflation. The columns are the month growth rate, which gives you an idea of what's happening most recently. And the blue line, the dark line, is the year over year growth rate. It gives you an idea of what's happening over the past year. It's growing at 4.3%. That's pretty high compared to the average of 3.2%. It's strong, but it's going to drop. It's going to drop on Thursday because back last January, you see this tall column here?
Yep.
This is where Social Security got a 9% boost for cost of living adjustment. Social Security payments are part of income. That's
Well,
not going to happen this year. So income is going to drop off.
so Social Security got a 9% increase, but when we looked at how far, housing's up 30 some percent, gas is up 30 some percent or 20 some percent, and then food is up astronomically high. 9%, that's not enough.
That's right. But that's right. It's that cumulative effect again. 9% in 1 year, that shot in the arm isn't enough to cover everything that's happened in the previous years and the year after that. We still have inflation. That's right. But Social Security had been getting, very small boosts along with inflation. So at 9% really kind of matched the peak of inflation, which was 9.1%. And
Okay.
again, that shows up. This is the income that people are getting into their pockets. It includes wages and salaries and any interest income they might have, and things like Social Security and Medicare. That's all income. And
Okay.
again, we're not going to get as big a boost in January of this year, and so income is going to slow down. Okay, well, you're the consumer, you need money to spend, and it looks like income is going to slow down. Well, now where do you turn? Well, you could go to personal savings. That's the chart on the right. You can see those columns. There are a few red ones there where actually savings dropped, and the savings rate, the black line, is at 3.8% versus an average of 5.2%. So savings are drying up. Okay, now where do you go? Well, now you go to credit cards. That's the chart on the left. Credit card debt has risen 37% over the past 3 years, but it's risen at really outrageous interest rates. And again, those interest rates become were a product of the Fed raising rates. That's that chart in the middle. Average rate now something like 21%. And of course, if your credit score isn't as good, your rates are even much higher. You're getting into the high 20s. So you have a lot of credit card debt coming on at very high rates, and you're going to start getting delinquency. And that's the chart on the right. Delinquencies back in the end of 21 were 1.6%. Now they're at 3%, and they're going to keep going up. Now, historically, this isn't a record, but it is going the wrong way sharply. So that's one of the reasons why we think consumers are going to be facing headwinds. We think income is going to be slowing down, and savings, particularly those excess savings, are drying up. And they're going to have to turn to credit cards, which will raise delinquency rates. We're saying slowdown in 2024.
That paints the picture for everyone to see where we are as an economy.
It's not a great picture. It's not as grim as we thought it was going to be, but we definitely think it's going to be a slower year. And we do expect in the middle of the year for the Federal Reserve to say, okay, we're close enough to that 2% inflation rate. We're going to now start lowering rates very slowly.
So you see that happen into second quarter, maybe third quarter?
June, July, right now.
Okay. So you think that last bit will come off between now and into June, July?
I think so, to the extent that it will satisfy the Federal Reserve. They can say, okay, we're there. But that's, I don't know, 5 months from now, 4 or 5 months from now.
Wow. Dan, as always, amazing. I feel like I'm watching Bob Ross paint when you you teach and show us all the graphs and the charts and explain, the impacts and what it really means. We really appreciate you very much. Love having you on. Thank you for making time for all of us and our viewers.
Well, thank you, John. It's always a pleasure talking with you. I'm not sure whether it's a good thing to be Bob Ross or not, but I'll take it as
Everybody loves Bob Ross. I don't know anybody who doesn't love Bob Ross. But
right.
Allianz Trade, everyone, now you understand the value Dan brings if you haven't seen him before. But they definitely have a big value in you. So we appreciate it. We understand the value you bring us. And until next time, Dan, stay in your lane.